What if I told you there was a group of female pilots who flew into the night sky and struck fear into the hearts of the enemy? These women were not only skilled pilots, but they were also incredibly brave. They flew in the face of danger every time they took to the skies, knowing that they might not return alive. Yet they continued to do their duty, flying dangerous bombing missions under the cover of darkness. This group of female pilots was known as the Night Witches, and they were one of the most elite units in the Soviet Air Force. Today we will tell you about these brave women who flew into the night sky and became legends in their own time. Their story began during World War II when Adolf Hitler decided to invade the Soviet Union. The Germans had a strong air force, and the Soviets were struggling to keep up. This is where the Night Witches came in. A group of female pilots who were trained to fly at night and drop bombs on enemy targets. The Night Witches were not your typical female pilots. They were hand-selected by the Soviet Air Force for their skills and bravery. These women had to be able to fly in the face of danger and not be afraid to take risks. Once selected, they underwent rigorous training to learn how to fly at night and drop bombs accurately. This was not easy, as flying at night is much more difficult than flying during the day. There are no visuals to help you navigate, so you have to rely on your instruments. Plus, you're flying in enemy territory, so there's always the risk of being shot down. But the Night Witches were up for the challenge. They knew that their country needed them, and they were willing to do whatever it took to help the war effort. Despite the dangers involved, the Night Witches were incredibly accurate when it came to dropping their bombs. They would often hit their targets within a few feet, which caused massive explosions and destroyed enemy buildings and equipment. This accuracy was due to their use of a special technique known as the pendulum method. This involved swinging the plane back and forth until the target was lined up perfectly with the bomb site. It wasn't easy to do, but the Night Witches were able to master this technique, and it helped them become some of the most feared pilots in the war. But the Night Witches weren't just skilled pilots. They were also incredibly brave. Flying at night in enemy territory is dangerous enough, but these women did it without any support. They were on their own. If their planes were damaged, they had to make it back to base on their own. If they were injured, they had no one to help them. But still, they flew every night, dropping bombs on enemy targets and helping the Soviet war effort. One of the most amazing things about the Night Witches is that they flew more than 30,000 combat sorties, which is a testament to their bravery and dedication. They flew through bad weather, through enemy fire, and they didn't let anything stop them from completing their missions. Their bravery was an inspiration to those around them, and they were highly decorated for their service. The Night Witches were awarded many medals and honors for their bravery and their service. They were given the Order of Lenin, the Order of the Red Banner of Labor, and many other medals. Their deeds were legendary, and they became some of the most famous pilots in Soviet history. After the war, the Night Witches were celebrated as heroes. They were interviewed, they gave speeches, and they appeared in movies and TV shows. Their story was one that needed to be told, and people were eager to hear their experiences. The Night Witches were an inspiration to women all over the world, and they showed that women could do anything that men could do, even if it was dangerous or difficult. As you can imagine, being part of the Night Witches was not easy. These women had to endure long hours, dangerous conditions, and the constant threat of death. But they did it for their country, for their comrades, and for the greater good. They were true heroes, and their story should be remembered. You might be wondering why the Germans called them witches. Well, it was because of the way they flew their planes. They would make sharp turns and fly very low to avoid detection, which made them seem like they were flying like birds. The Germans were superstitious, and they believed that these pilots were witches. This may not have been the best name, but it certainly was effective in striking fear into the hearts of the enemy. These women were not only pilots, they were also navigators and bombardiers. They had to be able to fly the plane, navigate to the target, and drop the bombs accurately. This required a great deal of skill and precision, but the Night Witches were up for the task. They were well trained, and they were determined to do their job. The planes that the Night Witches flew were not the most modern planes in the Soviet Air Force. In fact, they were some of the oldest planes in the Air Force. But these planes were well maintained, and they were perfect for the Night Witches' mission. The planes were able to fly very slowly and very quietly, which allowed them to sneak up on their targets. They were also very nimble, which allowed them to make sharp turns and avoid enemy fire. The planes may have been old, but they were reliable and they got the job done. The Night Witches were part of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, which was made up of 4 separate squadrons. Each squadron was made up of around 20 planes, which meant that there were around 80 planes in total. This was a huge fleet of planes, and it allowed the Night Witches to carry out multiple missions every single night. The sheer number of planes also meant that the Night Witches were able to cover a lot of ground and hit targets all over the Soviet Union. These women were not only pilots, they were also members of the Communist Party. They were loyal to their country, and they were committed to winning the war. They believed in what they were doing, and they were proud to be part of the Soviet Union. Their loyalty and dedication were evident in their work, and they were an asset to the Soviet war effort. If you think this is impressive, wait till you hear this. The Night Witches flew more than 30,000 combat sorties, which is a staggering number. This means that each pilot flew multiple missions every single night, which is a testament to their bravery and dedication. They flew through all sorts of weather conditions, and they never backed down from a challenge. Their bravery was unmatched, and they were truly the heroes of the Soviet Union. Being a member of the Night Witches was not for the faint of heart. These women had to be in top physical condition in order to fly their planes. They had to be able to withstand the G-forces involved in flying at high speeds, and they had to be able to react quickly in emergency situations. Being a Night Witch required a combination of physical and mental toughness, but these women were up for the challenge. They were well trained, and they were prepared to do whatever it took to get the job done. This is just another example of the incredible things that women have accomplished throughout history. The Night Witches were not only skilled pilots, but they were also brave and dedicated individuals who made an important contribution to the war effort. Their story should be remembered and celebrated. The legacy of the Night Witches lives on today. There are statues and memorials dedicated to them, and their story has been told in books and documentaries. They are truly an inspiration to all of us, and their bravery should not be forgotten. We hope you enjoyed learning about the Night Witches, one of the most elite units in the Soviet Air Force. These brave women were not only skilled pilots, but they were also incredibly brave and dedicated. They flew over 30,000 combat sorties and were highly decorated for their service. The Night Witches were an inspiration to those around them, and their bravery was instrumental in helping the Soviet Union win the war. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.